over 100% year-over-year spend growth, over 100% year-over-year revenue growth, and spending 6 figures a month on TikTok and YouTube on top of a monster meta spend. That is all what is happening in Jack Rubin's business that just keeps growing profitably. I'm talking about Purdy and Fig with 3-time guest Jack Rubin. Incredible growth story, and he's going to break down all of it with like some of the most practical, tactical advice I've ever heard on some of these things. Let's get into it. Jack, what's up, man? How are you?
Andrew, how's it going? That's the dog.
I immediately got a dog. What's your dog's name? People are going to want to know that. Otto. All right.
Yeah.
Great. People love dogs. That's actually going to be a happy thing to have happened. Jack, give people, but you've been on my show twice. If you're watching or listening to this, go and get those other episodes there in the show notes. You've had incredible success with Purdy and Fig, but just give people the quick intro again on sort of like the quick reminder, like where is Purdy and Fig at since we last talked, etc. If people want more context, they can do it.
Purdy and Fig. So people that don't know, we sell natural cleaning products in concentrated form. So you get these little cleaning concentrates that you fill up with a bottle for life, with tap water at home, and then we on subscription send you refills, and they come in different scents and that kind of thing. So we're good. We're growing fast. So we've probably doubled since last year, since we last spoke. So
crazy.
It's great, and
part of that's your LTV, but it sounds like your spend is also increasing along the way. So it's not just that you're growing because of, I mean, you're a subscription focused brand. You've always had monster LTV. We've talked about that in the past on this show, but like, it sounds like your spend is also growing, and that's part of why you're not just like getting 20% increase because your LTV is growing. It's like you're actually spending more, as far as I understand it. Is that right?
Yeah, spend's up about 120% year on year, and CAC is probably up about 18%. So it's nice. Yeah,
and you're in the mid upper 8 figures, somewhere around there. So that kind of the point is that. The point is like, you know, when you hear 100% growth year over year, 120% growth year over year and spend, you know, those kinds of things. If you're a $5 million brand, that's awesome. It's hard to do at that stage. It's impressive even then, but it's a little bit more of a normal story. When you're in mid 8 figures already, that is ridiculous. like, so how in the world are you guys spending that much more money and growing that much revenue still at this stage of business?
Yeah, I mean, we're still spending most of our money on Meta. So, you know, we Meta's like the engine, and we're just producing so much Meta creative now that it's pretty bonkers. So, just had the monthly report from last month. Like, I think we did 450 new concepts into the ad account last month.
Not just variations, but like actually new concepts.
New concepts, yeah. So that's the kind of scale of creative going in, and that's definitely been a big driver.
How big is your team supporting that?
Our whole team is probably coming on 50 people now. But that team
for just Meta? No. Okay.
No, the whole business. The whole business.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah. Sorry. Specifically, how big? Yeah, Meta creative team.
The creative team is about 7 or 8 people. And then we've got four editors in the Philippines as well. So actually probably 12 people.
Cool. That's still a lot. 450 concepts. Yeah, it's awesome. Okay. What about, so your meta spend is growing. You're producing huge amounts of content. Let's do a little quick breakdown on the concepts. 450 concepts. Do you have any feel? I mean, you guys are at a size now where you may not even know the answer to this, but of those 450 concepts, do you have an estimate of how many of them are stills versus videos?
Oh, about 75% video.
How long do you think most of those videos are?
They used to be longer, but we've actually found like a 20 to 40 second range to be really, really strong.
Okay. Yep.
So quite a lot of them, 20 to 40 seconds, and then a fair amount of them are over a minute as well.
I'm a big fan of the long form explainer. We've talked about that. That's been really important for me at times. I know you've used some of that stuff in your business. I know we've talked about that in the past. People may or may not know you and I used to do some coaching kind of stuff together earlier on in your business. And then I think we kind of mutually fired each other, actually, because you were getting to a point where I thought, like, I'm the wrong guy to help you anymore. Like, you're getting too big for me to be like the best place to think about this. And that, I think, was great. That was the right call. So,
yeah. Well, unfortunately, when you get a bit bigger, it all becomes people issues and that kind of thing.
That's
right. Just changes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested in that 20 to 40 second thing because, one of the things that I have been thinking about recently is just the notion that, like, man, I wonder what if we could double our output by just shortening our ads? Like, I mean, and maybe that's actually a more efficient use of our time and money. It's just shorter ads at more volume, Is that, you just said, you used to do longer, now you're 20 to 40 seconds. Was that in the calculation somewhere that we could just put out more stuff by doing shorter?
I actually think with shorter ads, it focuses the mind. The constraint's really, really powerful in terms of the amount of value you need to pack into like a 20, 30 second piece of content. Because I always think if you can demonstrate clearly what the product does and get across a couple, 2 or 3 key benefits and differentiators in 20, 30 seconds, you're kind of within your average watch time, 6 or 7 seconds, you're going to get a lot of that in the first 6 or 7 seconds. So suddenly you're packing a lot more actual meat into the average viewer time. And I think what that does is it not only can help you convert from those ads, like the click to conversion rate is pretty good because they've got more context, but actually I think it helps your funnel because all the people that have just kind of watched an ad and haven't taken action, they've got a much fuller story in that 6-7 seconds. So I think it helps the whole funnel, actually, shorter ads.
So interesting. Do you find that you guys, I'm compelled by this. This makes me want to go really make an effort on this for my clients. Do you find that, like, you're jumping straight to the point of the ad? Like, when you say 20 to 40 seconds, more are you sort of doing less hooky stuff? Like, what, is there any structure that you are making as part of that?
So we had an ad that went and spent, was spending 100K in a day. And it was about 25, 26 seconds. And the hook was actually an organic bit of content that was 3 tips to make your home smell nice for new guests. That was the hook. So like nothing to do with but in that hook contained some really core like product benefits. And then it was product demonstration, straight into product demonstration. And then firing off some of the reasons why we deliver the hook. And yeah, that ad scaled like crazy. We're using that as like the template, as the gold standard for a lot of the new concepts we're working on.
That's really clever. What I hear with that is, and this is dangerous because I'm analyzing something and I could be very wrong about why it's working. This is a thing that advertisers do all the time. They analyze an existing ad with all these thoughts about why it works or doesn't work, and sometimes they're even wrong about whether it's worked in the first place. But one of the things I hear there is that you're speaking. It's a really digestible thing, right? Three tips for doing it. I mean, that's just like good content for a certain kind of person. But also, it speaks to this really specific angle, which is not just like make your home smell clean, but smell clean for guests. That's like speaks to something I think that is a deeper desire that people have about sort of what it means to have a home and to have people in it and some of that. So, it's like, it's interesting.
So the other thing we did, which has really been interesting and it's just new that we haven't chatted about, we haven't caught up in a while, so I'll tell you about it. We did this huge piece of segmentation work. So we created like a massive survey with some consultants. And we put it to our customer base and a nat rep sample of the population, and we created these incredibly distinct personas from those surveys that they're so rich, and they're giving those to an ad team is like genuine gold dust for them. So ranking all of your product angles and benefits. And you get from each persona, you get which ones they care about and why, what drives their purchasing, what kind of things they respond to on a psychological level and on a social level and on a product benefits level. And it's what strategists just need. They need that kind of rich information. That if you can, if anyone can do, something like that, it will help a lot. It's great.
I really believe that. I had Sarah Levenger on my podcast talking about sort of like psychological motivations to buying. I've tried to engage in some of this with some of my clients, but found sometimes that actually collecting that avatar work is extremely hard. Like it's there's a lot of noise in it too. Like there's all of these things that like become sort of distractions in it. But what it reinforces for me that I believe is definitely true is that messaging is by far the biggest driver of ad success, and that so what you have to do is think really hard about what that message is and about how to speak to it, and then find a mix of messaging and formats that accomplish that really well. That's really interesting. So that was like a big unlock for you guys. It sounds like.
Yeah, really, really good unlock. Just in terms of getting that creative volume out, and like you got to keep coming up with new scripts, right? And the problem with high volume creative you find is you can find yourself in little holes. So you get into holes of optimization where suddenly you're so far down a tunnel of optimization that you kind of lose sight of a lot of the angles and kind of directions your content can go in. And I think having these personas, it helps you zoom out all the time and keep zooming out and rethinking about what kind of content you're making. Yeah.
If you are serious about using landing pages as part of your advertising strategy, you ought to be considering working with Fermat. That is because Fermat Commerce is the best funnel building software and service of which I am aware in the e-commerce space. And it's that simple. It is the most robust solution to the challenge of great post-click experiences for your ads that I know of. And that's because it's a mix of actually software and service. If you're thinking about Fermat just as e-commerce software or landing page software, you really aren't thinking about it correctly. You should think about it more like a service empowered by the best software in the space. So if you work with Fermat, you get an account manager who builds your landing pages and full funnels for you and with you and becomes a strategic part of your team. And in that respect, it's much more like an agency service, but it's not just that. Fermat also does all of their work on their software, which is by far the best landing page software that I've ever seen. That's because it is way beyond just landing pages. So the landing page aspect of it really works awesome. Like lots of great ways of building like custom video shops and advertorial landers and all the things that make, high converting landers great, including the fastest loading landers I've ever seen in my life. Like it's ridiculous how fast the Fermat pages load. But beyond that, Fermat actually allows you to build total post-click funnel experiences that are way deeper than anything else like this that I've seen, right? So on top of just landing pages, Fermat's landers go straight into custom-built PDPs. So you can actually build custom PDPs relative to which ad or lander a customer came through. So you can build really tight experiences for your customers in a way that I just really haven't seen anywhere else. You can even add custom carts to those PDPs as well, so that solution is consistent all the way through. That experience is consistent for your customers. It's really, really awesome software. And like I said, if you're building landing pages as part of your ad strategy at all, you ought to be testing Fermat and see if it's the right fit for you. So go to fermatcommerce.com/AF, fermatcommerce.com/AF. Links in the show notes, of course. So check that out today and get started with Fermat. 100%. Yeah, every creative has experienced that, where you just almost like you just make the same three things over and over again because you're kind of out of ideas. So it sounds like what you're saying is the segmentation in the avatars the personas that you created help people break out of those things because it gave people new things to talk about. Like, for example, ways to make your home smell nice versus ways to make your home smell nice for guests are actually two different things. Like there is a real issue there where there's a deep desire that some people have to host well. There's people who really value being great hosts. I think about friends of mine who, when I come over, they always apologize for the clutter. And I'm like, I've been in your house 3 times a week for 15 years. Like, why are you still apologizing for the clutter? And the answer is because this woman just is hospitable and she really values having a home that is welcoming and warm to people. And that value is very core to who she is and her value set as a human in the world. And so speaking to make your home smell nice versus make your home smell nice for guests really pulls at that very specific value. That's the way I would think about what you're saying here, is that this idea that you sort of push into that. Maybe I'm actually curious to hear if there's like any more distinctions in those personas that are sort of at that level of specificity that you could share that have been important. Even just like compare one versus another. Like, do you have any idea of like different sort of angles based on those personas that have allowed you guys to scale up and get out of those holes you're talking about?
Oh God, yeah. So like, so we actually found out that like different personas have different cleaning habits. So there's like, so like some people spot clean, which means they like go around and they like target little areas in the house and like they find little problems and they sort them out. And other people like more ritual cleaners, like do morning and evening wipe downs. And different groups had like different routines and patterns. And then what we were able to do is start building like angles around those routines, which is pretty nuts. So it's like we found out why people get into that morning ritual, and it's actually like a way to start the day. And then we created whole angles around that about having a great day and starting your day with cleaning, almost like the kind of. Do you ever see that general pattern speech about making your bed and that kind of being
yes,
like you've done the first task of the day. We did like a whole angle around that, and that did really well and scaled out, for instance.
That's so helpful, man. That's so helpful. Okay, so you built that team, but let's zoom out a little bit further. You built that team. This sounds like a whole other episode. Bring Camilla on too. You have built that team around extreme focus on meta. And you and I talked a lot about this when we were working together a little bit more, that just like there are always these temptations to go and pursue other channels. And at the time, the mentality was resist the temptation. Don't diversify channels. And I give this advice to people all the time, really sub 50 million in revenue. I say to people, focus, build all of your efforts on building a better machine of meta ads. Right. So, yeah, I'm really curious to hear like sort of how long you did that for, because the actual thing that's pushed us to record again here was a tweet of yours about diversifying your ad channels. And so, you know, it sounds like you've had some success by doing that, even though you're still pretty focused on meta. So let's like go back a little. You built up a team of 12 creative people or whatever, 12 people working on the team in various roles. You built that channel up, or you built that team up basically because you're focused on meta ads for a really long time. So did you focus on meta ads for too long? Like if you could go back, would you have stayed focused there for as long as you have? Or have you seen enough success by adding other channels that you think you should have diversified earlier?
So at a certain point in a business's size, I think the diversification question becomes partly about just the size of risk, like just the sheer dollars involved in like meta going wrong and the impact that has on your P&L requires you as like a business owner and strategist to plug that risk somewhat, because to a certain point it just starts to get irresponsible to like have that much leverage on one point. So I think we got to that point where I was looking at it, I was going, I feel a bit stupid actually. And like when you would have a bug and like all the meta bugs do happen, you're just like, this can't happen again. We need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet as a company at this size and scale. So I think like irrelevant of performance, that became true. And so we had to start looking at it properly. In terms of the actual like benefits of multi-channel, I'd say I wouldn't go any earlier, really. And I say that because the benefits of advertising on the channels has really come in the ability to do them in a quality way. And have the resource and financial muscle to invest in creative and invest in those channels properly to actually make them work. And by the way, I'd say we're pretty good at what we do, right? So we've got an outstanding team and an amazing creative muscle and a great media buying muscle. And it still took us 7 or 8 months of really hard work and dedicated resource. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds of investment in terms of team investment and creative investment to actually start in the last few months getting some success and actually like seeing some of the benefits. So I think every business thinking about it needs to be willing to make that investment and have the financial muscle to do so. And we can get on to, if you do and it works, I think the benefits are huge, and I can dive into those. But yeah, that's the kind of caveat I'd give.
I think that's so helpful. One of the reasons people do a bad job on other channels is they just don't invest that aggressive. Yeah, they just don't. You think about all the meta ads input out there about how to do it well, and people kind of come into meta ads with some clear principles and some simple ideas, and also it's the best. I mean, it's the easiest channel in a lot of ways. Like, it's the best performing channel. So you have a big head start, and so you don't have to have that kind of investment. And so if you carry that mentality to other channels, it would make sense to me that it wouldn't work as well. Whereas what you're saying is basically you have to be willing to lose a lot of money up front to make it work. If you can do that, then it can matter.
The channels are harder to measure. The creative is harder to get right. The media buying is harder, and harder to measure. The attribution's harder. And you've got like more signal problems because, with Meta, you've just got one signal and you can work out what's going on. So there's a lot of like, it's like a lot harder than Meta.
What if your business had lower cost of goods, shorter lead times, better, more favorable payment terms, lower MOQs? Those things would like revolutionize your business, right? Like, I'm convinced that supply chain is the most under-optimized part of many, if not most, e-commerce businesses. And there is a solution to getting there that will not eat up all of your time and will not eat up all of your money. And it is by working with my friends at Move Supply Chain. Go to movesupplychain.com to look into what they're doing. Move Supply Chain is a sister company of More Staffing. If you've heard me talk about More before, you know what the service offering is there. It is a staffing agency built in the Philippines where you get virtual professionals, not just virtual assistants, working on your business. Well, that same model comes over to the supply chain side of the business in more of an agency structure, specifically with my friends at Move. And I am telling you, these people are wizards. Like, Move is led by the best supply chain thinkers I have ever met in e-commerce, like seriously incredible supply chain thinkers. And because they're based in the Philippines, their pricing is affordable. Listen, here's a real story. I was working with Move on a project for a brand. And in a week, Move had contacted, 50 different manufacturers for this one brand. Like, in a week. And it was not an insane cost to get them to do that. By the end of it, they had sourced potential manufacturers who were like drastically lower COGS than anybody else had expected, and had like gotten on the phone, worked through the key details, and like just amazing work. Like, imagine if you had 50 more suppliers to talk to so you could build backup suppliers. Like, there's just all kinds of benefits to that, and it is really reasonably priced. You should, if you need to optimize your supply chain, tighten some things up in your supply chain, and you probably do, you should go to movesupplychain.com to get started with them. Tell them I sent you, movesupplychain.com. Get a conversation started today to get a better supply chain working in your business. Okay, so let's talk about when you added spend, how much spend you added as a percentage or something like that, and begin to kind of break that down a little bit more, because I mean, I do think it's helpful for people to hear this part of the conversation after the first part of the conversation we just had, which is I've got a team of 12 people making meta ads all the time. Like, that is a lot of focus on one channel before adding other channels, and you got really far doing that. And I'm coming away from that bit going, no, this was actually right for us. We made a lot of money. We had dollars to deploy before we went and opened up another channel. Probably for a lot of people, they should do that. But when you get to that point where you're ready to do it, let's start with like, how did you think about what channels to invest in next? And maybe what channels are you actually investing in next?
Yeah, sure. So always try and think about like what we're best at when choosing what to do next. And so short form vertical video, immediately, like, we're good at that. Like, we do that on Meta a lot. So TikTok was the natural like next place for us to start focusing. And I think the dynamics on TikTok are similar in terms of attribution and that kind of thing. So TikTok was the first place to start for us. And it came with another objective, which was, we're starting to hit up against really, really quite substantial household penetration numbers in the UK. So like to give people context, like coming up to 3.5-4% of all households in the UK have our product. And so we were starting to think, okay, this older audience, we need to really start pushing out of it that audience, and we wanted to use other channels as a way of doing that as well. Because our meta pixel is so honed and well trained on kind of certain type of audience that a new channel was a new opportunity and a way of actually trying to push after a new audience. So TikTok made sense on both levels, and that's worked very, very well. The content form is very similar. If you're good at organic, scrappy content, short form, snappy, to the point, a lot of the same principles apply. You have to make it a bit more organic, the content, and use the TikTok editor and stuff. But so that was the first place we started, and then YouTube, which was a much heavier lift.
So let's start. So are you still spending on TikTok?
Yeah, 6 figures a month.
Can you give a sense of 6 figures a month? Okay, great. So that's awesome. Okay. Measurement. Are you measuring? Actually, let's do measurement at the end of all of this. Okay. So YouTube was next after TikTok.
Yeah. So TikTok about over 6 figures a month now spending, which is nice. And very, very low CPAs as well. YouTube. Yeah. Now YouTube took absolutely ages to get working. We flopped on YouTube for months and months. It was so frustrating. The creative is so different. And the measurement's very different. But when you get YouTube working and you actually understand your incrementality and where your one day click needs to be, it is an absolute rocket for your other channels. It's a really awesome channel. It not only drives incremental conversions like straight away, but it really feeds your funnel and
yeah, right.
Since getting YouTube into a really strong place, and spending like over 6 figures on YouTube as well, meta spend has grown by about 50%.
Yeah.
So that's just in a few months, 50% in a few months.
That's crazy.
So a really.
And you think that's because you're reaching net new people on YouTube in new ways, basically?
Yeah, we see it. Yeah. So we actually look at new visitor percentage a lot, and we track the customer journeys quite closely as well. And we've done
using what?
Northbeam.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And then we look at incrementality as well. Incrementality studies with house. So we've done all the works on measurement, and we can see it. It's very compelling.
That's awesome. Okay, so you're spending 6 figures on TikTok, 6 figures a month on YouTube. Any other channels before we talk more about measurement and creative?
No, those are the two. Okay. I mean, sorry, one more actually. One more.
Oh, go ahead.
So, podcast/radio has been the other one that's been surprisingly strong. And actually, those of you that have like good direct response muscles, podcasts can be very effective. Even on like a discount code basis.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, and then actually, I'll tell you what else worked. Sorry, Andrew.
No, great, please.
Because your other guest put me onto this, Nate
Lagos, yeah. Direct media buys with YouTube.
Yeah, bloody hell, that is phenomenal. It's like in video readouts with discount codes is killing. Sub £15 CPA is like crazy.
Yeah. What's your normal? I mean, you don't have to, I don't know. Do you want to say how that compares? That's really like, good for you guys.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Nate Lagos, he's done a couple episodes with me. He's great. I'll link to that episode. You should definitely go check that out. Because
he spells it out for you, right? And he spells out how to measure it as well, which not just the discount code, but how to then media buy off the back of your CPM and conversion rate and everything. Right. It was like a masterclass. I loved it.
I love Nate. I've joked with him because, obviously I've spent a lot of time talking about manual bidding tactics on meta ads, and this thing is really important. But Nate to me is a shining example of like, I think that stuff is really important. I think Nate's spend could get better by actually doing that because he's not a manual bid guy. But but he's a perfect example of like, it's not the whole ball game. You know, I certainly don't think that. And his ability to talk through sort of how to think about the total marketing mix and how he's thinking about customers and all those things is just awesome. So yeah, definitely go check that episode out. You're right. He's really tactical if you want to know exactly how to do it. Nate's actually working on another client of mine right now, sort of as a side thing to help us get that channel going. We haven't started doing it yet, but we're going to, and I'm really excited about it. So yeah. Okay. That's really helpful. Let's talk about so TikTok creative. You mentioned a little bit. TikTok creative, you said was sort of needs to feel like organic TikTok, but it's still vertical short form video, right? Is that about right?
Yeah, exactly. You just need to dial up the organic elements, if anything polished on TikTok just bombs. So
yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then what about YouTube? So you said YouTube is really different creatively. What do you think has been effective for you on YouTube, and what actually unlocked that for you? Because you said you also spent a lot of time trying to do it. So, but I want to talk about measurement on YouTube in a second, but let's also talk about sort of what was effective about the channel.
So YouTube is essentially it's a much more top of funnel view through channel, and so what you find is, yes, you can get some direct conversions, and actually you can get very not bad efficiency, but most of the benefit of the advertising is coming in, driving new visitors and filling up your funnel for retargeting and that kind of thing. So your content basically needs to reflect that. And you're getting into more like typical or classic marketing theory there. And so we have found that the quality of creative, but I don't mean like the glossiness of it. I mean, you want to be telling more of a story, an emotional story in your creative, that actually a customer is going to remember. And so there's a bit more of an art to that creative, and you're not just trying to push a response straight away. You're trying to get an emotional connection with the customer.
Yeah, that's helpful. And so you guys, did you start, well, a lot of people do on YouTube, and I've seen a lot of times, right? You start with sort of, take your vertical video and put it on shorts, basically YouTube shorts, because then you can run vertical video and see if it works. Is that where you guys started?
Yeah, that works as well. So that shorts is working pretty well on just like as like a performance channel. So that's like one side of YouTube where we're spending about 6 figures, and then another side of YouTube is like the more
horizontal video storytelling,
not non-skippable stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And then that's great. And then do you have the same team working on your YouTube ads as the team that's working on your Meta ads?
No. New team.
Okay. Did you bring in an agency for that? Did you in-house that? How did you approach that?
We in-house the strategists, and then we actually agency the production, because the production capabilities were just like slightly different.
Yeah. And you said it doesn't have to be glossy, but I bet it is glossier.
It's a bit glossier. But we went super glossy without a proper story. Like what we first tried to do.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah.
We first tried to like recreate meta ads, but like with more gloss. Didn't work. Then we tried to do like a story, and the quality wasn't quite there. Didn't work. And then we did story with a bit of quality, and we saw the results. So it was about 3 iterations of creative to kind of get it into a good place.
Yeah. Okay. That's a very helpful distinction. It's not really about just story. It's not really about just glossy. It's the right mix of doing that, but the messaging really, really matters there. So with your shorts spend, is your shorts creative literally just taking like meta ad stuff and putting it into shorts? Like, are you developing separate shorts creative?
No. We are literally repurposing meta ads for shorts, and that's working very, very well. So what we're now looking at doing is build, but to be clear, that's not. So for TikTok, we are doing more TikTok specific creative, but essentially the next steps for me is building completely independent in-house teams of the same size and scale as our meta teams for each channel. And I think TikTok and YouTube Shorts can both get to like very, very substantial spends, potentially up to 7 figures a month of spend, if we invest in the creative properly. So to give people an idea, for that 6 figures of spend on each channel, we had 420 odd concepts going to Meta. Into TikTok, I think it was like 30, and into YouTube it was like 16. And YouTube and TikTok both spent 100K each, right? So my immediate thing is build a team to get those kind of new creators up to like 100, and you're going to be able to double, triple spend very, very easily. Almost the same playbook again on those channels is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. That makes tons of sense as to what you would do next. That's sort of the obvious move. Let's talk about measurement a little bit. This is one of the challenges. Let's start with TikTok again. And I think let's focus here. The podcast stuff is interesting. The radio stuff is actually really interesting. I've wondered about radio for a while. But for podcasts, for TikTok, measurement there, how much can I trust that my TikTok, let's step back. When you started measuring, you've got 3 potential sources that you've referenced as potential sources of data besides last click Google Analytics. Okay. So, source number 1. So that's actually to say 4 sources. Number 1, last click Google Analytics, right? Or Shopify even. You could do that with UTMs. Number 2 would be the channel itself, the channel dashboard. So what TikTok is telling you. Number 3 is a third-party attribution tool, like Northbeam, you mentioned. Number 4, and a third-party incrementality tool, which is doing something different than attribution, though it's semi-related. And you said you use House or Measured or something like that, right? Did you say House? Maybe?
House, yeah.
Yeah,
House,
okay, great. Okay, awesome. 4 tools. So you've now got a lot of stuff to look at there. One of the problems, Taylor Holiday talks about this a lot, is that people are then drowning in information. So how have you thought about sort of how to use those tools as you don't have to go super into the weeds here, but like, what have you learned going through that process about this?
So I've got a good one for people here, because I've thought about this one a lot, and I feel like I've come to a really simple but effective set.
By the way, and maybe you're going to say this, but there's actually a 5th one, which is your bank account. So, that's the other
bloody
one.
Always looking at the fucking bank. Yeah, always looking at the bank account. And always looking at blended. Yeah, so that's cool. So the simple answer to your question, and the key with all these attribution sources, all these like different measurement things, is to link them. So the thing you really want to do is you want to link your channel to your third-party attribution, to your incrementality, so that you understand the relationships between them. Because fundamentally, you're media buying on your channel, so you don't want to be making media buying decisions based off your third-party attribution tool or your incrementality studies, or
whatever. Yeah,
right? So that's no good. It's going to throw off your media buy. So you media buy here. So the question I immediately ask myself with these measurement tools is, how do I link? Let's take incrementality to being at the very end of the measurement journey. How do I actually form a link between incrementality studies all the way down through my stack to my channel CACs? And that's what I started to think about. And so, for instance, I can play it out in a scenario for you to make it easier. So let's say your channel CAC, let's take our channel CAC on TikTok, which is very low. So that channel CAC comes in at, actually, no, I'll just use fake numbers. So let's say £20, right? $20. So your channel cut comes in at $20.
We can make the conversion. £20, $20. We got it.
And then you've got your third party attribution tool. So Northbeam 1 day click actually says that's $40. And then you've got your incrementality study that you run and tells you that your TikTok ads are actually not only that your $40 Northbeam 1 day click is actually acting as a $30 1 day click because of the post-click effect of your TikTok ads. Maybe you've got new audiences, or let's say there's view through effects, whatever it might be. And this is particularly prevalent on YouTube. So what you do is you link your incrementality study. Let's say it's an extra 25% of conversions coming later from your incrementality study. You then link that to your Northbeam CAC, which means that 40 is actually 30. And then you link that 40, 30 to your channel CAC to say your channel CAC can be 15 rather than 20. So all the way down the stack, you're creating the link from your incrementality down to your channel, and then your media buyer just has a new target in their channel. And I think that is the best way to use these tools, because what you then have is different channel targets for different, or from a media buying angle for different channels. So your YouTuber, I can have a £60 channel CAC because it links to a £100 Northbeam CAC, but we know that's the same as a £40 Northbeam CAC for Meta because of incrementality studies or whatever. And you've got that clear journey, and that's what I'd recommend people try and do.
Yeah, that's always what I want to be able to do, right? Is to be able to say, like, I don't necessarily need a channel dashboard to be correct. What I need it to be is reliably related to the real value, right? So essentially, exactly like you said, if I have some way of knowing that, in that case, what is the purpose of Northbeam in the mix? And in terms of how is that additive if you have incrementality versus the channel one? Because can't you just go straight from incrementality to the channel?
The reason you need Northbeam is because Northbeam then, we find Northbeam accounts for different channels having slightly different stages in the funnel, essentially, and also different SKUs. So, for instance, what we found is within Meta, we have SKUs that sit at different parts of the funnel, and like top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel, right? And even though the channel CACs look the same, on Northbeam, we're seeing that actually the cost of some of these SKUs is much higher than Meta is saying. And so then that adjusts our Meta CAC for that SKU. So we have a SKU called the Complete, which is double the price. On Meta, it looks the same CAC as our normal SKU. But on Northbeam, they're saying, look, we can see what's going on here. Actually, your Complete CAC is actually double on Northbeam, your normal CAC. And so we then adjust our meta cost caps for that SKU. So for those scenarios, you want then that link through
different parts of the journey. You want to be able to see the whole journey, and that's what it uniquely provides a window into. That's interesting. Okay, so I don't know if this will be something that is actually transmissible to other brands, but I remember I tweeted once and I said, let's say YouTube tells you you've got a 1-to-1 on in your performance. Is your actual performance higher or lower than that 1-to-1? And everybody responded it's higher. It's better than what YouTube tells you. Do you think that's basically right? If you're measuring on click in YouTube?
Not YouTube. No, not YouTube on platform. But
YouTube on platform. Okay, so YouTube on platform is, if you're based on a click basis, you're over reporting or under. YouTube is you. Yeah, do you see what I'm saying? Do you think Google's numbers in YouTube ads are telling you that your ROAS is too high or too low?
Too high.
Yeah. Okay. So you're actually, so in that case, let me just make sure I'm being clear. If I'm getting a 1-to-1 on YouTube, I'm probably actually getting what? For you guys,
it's very dependent. It's very dependent. So what we can see, Northbeam tells us that YouTube on platform is showing much better results than in reality for direct conversions. But then our incrementality tells us that we can have a much higher Northbeam CAC.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That's interesting. So the direct conversions are bad in Northbeam, but it's actually really incremental, you're saying?
Yeah. Over time. Over time.
And then there's also this element.
You can just set a much higher Northbeam CAC for that channel. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's actually this element here where it's also feeding the funnel in a way that's generating better meta spend as well.
Yeah, and I think that is the incrementality effect, basically.
So that's the thing I've always thought was most intuitive about this whole conversation is that, like, yes, when you put your ads in front of more people, there's no magic here. Like, if you do a good job with your message and tell them what is true about your product, then they're going to they'll become aware of your brand. I mean, put it another way, advertising works, right? Like it's sort of that simple, and you have to do a good job. Your messaging has to be good, all those things, but it works. It's funny. I talked to Simple Modern guys recently, their CMO, and he was telling me that they've made a really big effort to be more local in Oklahoma City. So they sponsored the Oklahoma City Thunder. You know, they're a much bigger stage of business than most of us. They sponsored the Oklahoma City Thunder. They put up billboards around town, really traditional advertising channels. And, you know, they have also mass retail and some of those things. But he said, I think they were doing local, radio, local podcasts, OU football, things like that were all very localized because they specifically wanted Oklahomans and Oklahoma Cityans to know that they were a local business that they should be proud of, and all those things. So, okay. So that is the way they approached it. And I said, did it work? He said, it worked amazing. It worked awesome for us. We smashed in Oklahoma City. And I said, well, what was it? And he said, I have no idea. Like, just because like they did all of these things at once. They saw the total lift geographically in their sales. They could measure it D2C. They saw their sell through in stores. And they couldn't say it was the billboards or whatever else, and that to me sort of makes sense. That you get to a size of business where you make an investment like that, you see it pay off, and which channel is working? Like, I mean, I don't know. Now you're talking about a level of sophistication or a level of knowledge that is better than what he is expressing there. But the point I'm making is advertising works, and that when you hit people where they're at with a thing that's relevant to them with a good message and all those things, you'll sell product to them if it's a good product, especially.
Yeah, and I'll just also add, like you mentioned that the fifth attribution measure, which is like your bank account and Shopify, and ultimately that's where we're seeing the results of multi-channel, because we're spending more and more, CAC is barely going up, and we're seeing some really interesting brand effects of surrounding the customer and all these different touch points. Like word of mouth has increased substantially, and as I said, all the meta's got a lot more people to go after. There's just a lot of kind of residual benefits basically coming through.
It's so fascinating. I've been thinking recently about how when I got into e-commerce, I remember the first time I ever saw a Google Analytics account for a $20 million a year brand, and I was astounded at how big it was, and I was astounded at how wow, this is the most beautiful Google Analytics account I've ever seen, and actually Taylor Holiday and I were looking at it together, and Taylor pulled me into his office and was like, look at this, and we were both, this is a long time ago now, and it's just like these D2C businesses, including businesses that are not even just pure D2C anymore, are just so much bigger and more sophisticated and real players in the scene than they used to be. And so there's more and more of this kind of thing that's happening, which is like conversations around a brand like yours that keeps pushing on meta. It's not like you're lowering your investment. You still have you're still growing your spend there, building a really big team around it. But at the same time, you're building out this machine that is really built around like a serious investment across everywhere where your potential customers are, because there's more customers to reach, and you're just in the UK still, right? So it's like, so yeah, there's just, I'm hearing this story more and more that people are going like, yeah, there's ways to do it. And at the same time, in the midst of that, people waste a lot of money. There's a lot of like with poor measurement and some of those things. So I'm really fascinated. I'm really fascinated by your story. Anything else you want to say about TikTok and measurement there? Anything that people should know about sort of how to think about that particular channel?
Oh yeah. TikTok is massively over reporting conversions in channel.
Yeah.
So be super careful with it. We can see that in Northbeam as well. So yeah.
Cool. Jack, I appreciate this so much. This is really helpful for people who are thinking through this issue for themselves. I love the emphasis on make sure you can invest aggressively, make sure you understand measurement. You're putting a lot of money and time in measurement tools there. I think there's a trap there for some people that it becomes a little bit too, it becomes like a vortex that you get sucked into and all those things, but your simple goal at the end of it of just having a channel number that you try to hit makes a lot of sense to me. So Yeah, I think it's awesome. I appreciate your time so much and your sharing kind of what has gone on for you guys. I expect I'll have you back again next time you tweet something about, how you guys doubled again inexplicably and you're the biggest business in the entire UK. So yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to catch up.
All right, all the links for this episode, as always, are in the show notes. You can subscribe wherever you're watching or listening, and I would love if you would do that and pass us along to somebody that you think will be helpful to you. If it's been helpful to you, that's actually the number one way you can say thanks to me. Don't forget to check out my sponsors who are also linked in the show notes. They are great, and I love them, and I'm so grateful for their sponsorship of this show. Reach out to me at Andrew J. Ferris on Twitter, podcast@AJF Growth, via email, or if you want to work with me or hear anything else about what I'm doing, go do all of it at ajfgrowth.com. Sign up for my email list there. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.